There was once a colossal, strong yet gentle giant named Overos, whose heart was noble and whose purpose was to serve the mightiest kings of the earth. When he was dispatched to the court of a great monarch to attend to his needs, he witnessed one day the king shuddering and tracing the sign of the cross upon hearing a singer invoke the name of the devil. Overos asked in astonishment, "Why did you do that?" The king replied, "Because I fear the devil." Overos, taken aback, said, "If you fear him, then you are not the strongest. I wish to serve the devil himself." We have a puzzle, a riddle to consider, yet there remains a missing fragment of this enigma. For when we contemplate the edifices of the ancient world, a profound sense of loss overwhelms the soul. These structures have undoubtedly undergone radical transformations over the past 2 centuries, leaving behind only shadows of their former grandeur. Thus, when we journey across the remnants of our world and examine these colossal remains, the feeling of absence persists, as if something essential has vanished. Something is missing. The concept of harvesting the ether through those wondrous aerial devices is insufficient to comprehend the ancient energy network, or to complete the full picture. There was another element once present, which rendered the ancient technological network possible. This element was the central technological component within those structures, the engines and core mechanisms that enabled them to function efficiently and fulfill their purpose. However, these engines were not of the tokamak type we see today in reactors. Such a device is primitive, belonging to the designs of the modern world, and had no place in the ancient realm. Their sophistication and precision would not have permitted reliance on such crude or rudimentary machinery. Nevertheless, one cannot deny the resemblance between the fundamental shape of the tokamak and the ancient world's fascination with the octagonal form. The octagonal configuration was most likely a pivotal element in generating the toroidal vortex. Hence, we observe the octagonal shape repeated throughout the remnants of the ancient world. This geometry formed the foundation upon which numerous architectural structures were constructed. Yet these octagonal structures that we behold are, in truth, hollow shells that once contained something in the past, something that deepens the sense of loss and the emptiness that pervades every space. How many towers rise to smaller peaks, each crowned with a hollow dome? Why hollow? And why would a bygone civilization expend such immense time and effort constructing edifices that appear devoid of purpose? In reality, they did not do so in vain. Upon closer examination of these octagonal or non-octagonal structures, which now appear empty, we discern that they are always positioned at fundamental points, directly beneath the central aerial conduits, under vaulted resonators, at the center of closed, symmetrical courtyards, or in slightly remote locations just beyond the main generators. There is no doubt that the feeling of loss becomes palpable when one contemplates such exquisite geometric harmony, for it is evident that something once occupied that void, perhaps a cylinder or some device. Moreover, small historical remnants reveal traces remarkably akin to the construction methods of the ancient world. Within these remnants, we observe that cylinders or hollow vessels were integral, indivisible components of the original design itself. Could these miniature manufactured instruments have been functional tools, reflecting the configuration of the larger voids we see in the edifices of the ancient world? Or were they domestic apparatuses, enabling access to the energy of the principal generation network? Then, did the larger structures themselves contain similar cylinders? Although many ancient images show that the smaller domes and octagonal spaces had been emptied of their contents, some images provide fleeting glimpses of what once existed. In some, one discerns cylinders, in others, spheres or vessels appear. Yet due to the scarcity of images, it remains difficult to reach definitive or consistent conclusions. Undoubtedly, immense alterations were made to these structures, transformations that render it challenging to recognize their original essence. For instance, consider this image from the year 1888, depicting what is termed the completion of Cologne Cathedral. This is a miniature model of the uppermost section of the tower, placed outside the cathedral to provide visitors with an impression of the immense scale of those towers and their impossibility relative to the capabilities of 19th century citizens. Yet, upon closer examination of the image, one notices that it focuses on the pinnacle of a single tower, where the wooden panels representing scaffolding are clearly visible. It is also evident that the tops of the towers were open, revealing some form of cylinder within. However, the men depicted in this image were not completing the construction of the cathedral's final tower as claimed. Rather, they were removing what had existed inside the container. This raises questions of profound significance. How many other components and elements within these edifices were opened in the same manner? Why were they opened? And what did they contain? Of particular interest is that some threads of truth emerge from the esoteric realm, from mysterious and secretive practices, foremost among them alchemy, a discipline that represented a cryptic natural philosophy or a preparatory scientific imitation. At its core, alchemy revolved around the concept of chrysopia, the transmutation of base metals into precious ones. Since its inception in the ancient Egyptian, Greek, Indian, and Middle Eastern cultures, alchemy has concerned itself primarily with two objectives. First, the conversion of base metals into gold, and second, the pursuit of the elixir of life, which promised immortality. Most of us are familiar with the name of the medieval alchemist Nicholas Flamel and his legendary philosopher's stone, a field steeped in magic, Kabbalah, mysticism, and otherworldly realms. This tradition persisted without severing its esoteric roots until the mid-18th century, when it gradually evolved into the science of modern chemistry. Nevertheless, the 19th century witnessed a limited esoteric revival that extended into the early decades of the 20th century, when, in the year 1922, a mysterious book appeared, authored by a figure of no less enigma, known as Falconelli. He was said to be a French alchemist. The title of the book was The Mysteries of the Cathedrals. To this day, Falconelli's true identity remains a subject of debate. No one knows who he really was. Even his name resembles the fate of many obscure figures recorded in historical texts, appearing as a playful anagram of words. The term falcon alludes to Vulcan, the Roman god of fire, while Eli signifies El, a Canaanite word meaning God. In any case, it is evident that Falconelli was not a real individual, and that the book was the work of a single author or a collective of Masonic followers. Yet his alchemical interpretation of those wondrous edifices we call cathedrals was an authentic reading, suffused with insight, revealing half-truths and inspiring extensive contemplation. For instance, in Falconelli's reading of the statue of Ophoros that once stood in Notre Dame Cathedral before its destruction, the author begins to impart certain truths to the reader, drawing upon the legend of Ophoros, the simple giant who desired to serve the devil, considering him the most powerful of kings. And he did indeed enter the service of Iblis and his legions. One day, the servants accompanied their master Iblis past a cross by the roadside, and he commanded them to veer away from it. Ophoros, astonished, asked why. The devil replied, "Because I fear the image of Christ." Ophoros, contemplating, remarked, "If you fear him, then you are not the strongest. I wish to serve Christ." And he continued on his way, passing the cross. As he walked, he encountered a hermit and asked, "Where can I find Christ?" The hermit replied, "He is everywhere." The hermit, knowing the simple nature of this giant and understanding that he was not inclined toward prayer or meditation, led him to a raging river and said, "The poor souls who attempt to cross this river will drown. Stay here and carry them upon your strong shoulders. If you do this, Christ will recognize you and acknowledge you as his servant." So Ophoros did as he was commanded, spending his days and nights carrying people across the river. One evening, there came a knock upon his door. When he opened it, he found a small child wishing to cross the river. He lifted the child upon his shoulders. Yet no sooner had he reached the middle of the river than the waters transformed into a raging torrent, and the waves rose so high that they threatened to drown him. Fearing the child might fall from his shoulders, he uprooted a tree from the riverbank to brace himself against it. Still, the child grew increasingly heavy with each passing moment. Raising his head, Opharos asked the child, "Why do you burden yourself so?" "I feel as though I am carrying the entire world upon my shoulders." The child replied, "You do not carry the world alone. You carry the one who created it. I am Christ. And as a reward, I baptize you in the name of the Lord, in my name, and in the name of the Holy Spirit. From this moment forth, your name shall be Christopher." Thus Christopher walked the earth for the remainder of his days, teaching the word of Christ. He is Christopher, the one who bore Christ to humanity. Upon careful reflection on the legend, and in an attempt to understand it within its esoteric context, which relies on symbolic language, we discern that Falconelli focused on the character of Opharos to reveal a hidden key, one that opens a new layer of symbolic meaning within the myth. In his enigmatic style, he explained that Christopher symbolizes Chrysopoeia, the bearer of gold. From this, we grasp the profound significance of the emblematic figure of Saint Christopher. He is the hieroglyph representing solar sulfur, that is, Jesus or nascent gold, rising upon the waves of Mercury and carried by the pure energy of Mercury to the level of power possessed by the elixir. These words form a riddle at their core, closer to talismans that resist penetration. Yet let us examine the passage closely. Falconelli writes that Jesus, or Christ, in this symbolic legend is the nascent gold. The word nascent here, in its linguistic root, conveys the notion of existence coming into being or of birth. Thus, nascent gold or solar sulfur is not merely gold. It is gold in the stage of growth, reaching the zenith of its potential. The final part of the text explains the reason for this growth. It is because it is born upon the mercurial waves. This, then, is a reference to the element Mercury, signifying that gold attains its perfection through the pure energy of Mercury. Falconelli further clarifies that the gray hue of Mercury is symbolic, which explains why Saint Christopher is frequently depicted in paintings wearing a grayish color, emblematic of the very essence of Mercury itself. Hence, it is imperative that we examine the element Mercury closely, for it occupies a position of profound significance, not only in comprehending the hidden mechanisms behind the technology of the ancient world, but also in understanding our contemporary reality. Here, we find ourselves navigating a symbolic landscape replete with enigmas, shaping our perception of history and our place within it. The symbol under discussion represents the element known as hydrogyros, whose literal meaning in Greek is silver water. Throughout the ages, it has been recognized under various names, such as liquid silver, or what we today call mercury. Its alchemical symbol is identical to the one employed in classical astrology to denote the planet Mercury. It is noteworthy that pure mercury, or virgin mercury, is exceedingly rare in the Earth's crust and is primarily extracted from cinnabar, a sulfurous mineral of deep crimson or scarlet hue. Cinnabar serves as the principal source from which mercury, in its pure, silvery liquid state, is obtained. Mercury is the only metal that exists naturally in a liquid form at standard temperature and pressure. Its freezing point is approximately 38 degrees below zero, while it boils at roughly 356 degrees. Due to its exceptional conductivity of electricity, most of its applications revolve around electrical technologies. Mercury plays a central role in the production of fluorescent lighting, and is also used in the manufacture of thermometers and dental amalgams. Additionally, Mercury possesses the remarkable ability to dissolve nearly all metals, excluding iron, including gold and silver, facilitating the creation of amalgams. It also finds application in the formulation of vaccines. However, at the dawn of the 21st century, governments and medical and pharmaceutical authorities declared mercury to be a toxic substance, gradually curtailing its use in medicine until some countries prohibited its circulation entirely. Indeed, several nations criminalized its trade, despite its previous role as a fundamental component in certain traditional medical treatments, such as Chinese medicine. While I do not deny the potential toxicity of mercury when injected into the human body, the surrounding fears regarding its danger have been greatly exaggerated. For all metals, excessive doses render them poisonous. Elevated levels of iron, copper, zinc, and aluminum within the body can provoke numerous ailments, often surpassing the harmful potential of mercury itself. Nevertheless, governments worldwide have neither banned aluminum foils nor ceased fortifying legumes with iron oxide, and zinc and copper supplements continue to be freely sold without restrictions on the recommended dosages. Could there be other undisclosed motives behind the vilification of mercury and the strict limitation of its usage? Let us, then, cast a closer glance upon the astonishing electromagnetic potentials of this remarkable element. Mercury has been employed in countless applications, yet the most captivating use lies in its role within lighthouses. According to official historical accounts, lighthouse keepers were responsible for ensuring that the massive lenses atop the towers rotated continuously throughout day and night. This rotation was achieved by placing the lens upon wheels or supports connected to gears operated manually by the keeper, a task requiring considerable effort. By the late 19th century, some keepers, weary of the repetitive labor, began to float the lenses upon liquid mercury, allowing the metallic base of the lens to move with ease, thereby enabling the light to rotate more rapidly. This technique, remarkably, remains in use in certain lighthouses to this day. Yet the architectural structure of lighthouses reveals that their function was not confined merely to illumination or the guidance of ships. This was only one among several roles. Many lighthouses were constructed in the familiar octagonal form, with numerous ones bearing red and white stripes to signify energy stations. Many still possess aerials, and were all originally erected near water sources. It is thus evident that they serve a function akin to energy stations in the ancient world, before their purpose was repurposed and renamed across the globe. Consider, for instance, the Lindau Lighthouse, where one observes the architectural cogging and openings harmonized with vibration and frequency alongside the octagonal dome. Here, the original aerial has been replaced by a component source from the modern world. Yet the curious aspect is that the structure bears a clock. Although those who built it in antiquity were masters of the most precise timepieces known to history, the presence of a clock here appears superfluous, even illogical. This is because, originally, it was not a clock at all, but rather, most plausibly, something else entirely, something profoundly intriguing.